This is KM Weiland, and you are listening to the 84th episode of the Wordplay Podcast. In the wake of the Top 10 Blogs for Writers Award, myself and the other 9 winners have recovered from all the happy dancing and rewarding ourselves with chocolate, enough to put our heads together and plan some collective goodies for our blog readers. Over the next couple months, we plan to share posts on one another's blogs and collaborate on an ebook of writing and blogging tips. If you haven't already checked out the blogs of the other winners, you can find the links on my blog at wordplay-kmweiland, that's weiland.blogspot.com. This will be a fabulous way for you to benefit from the wisdom of some of the best writers on the web. To begin with, on Wednesday, I'll be appearing as a guest on Victoria Mixon's and Alan Morales' blogs with posts entitled, "Are You Guilty of These 8 Common Grammar Crimes?" and 6 Writing Rules You Should Break. Then, on Friday, Victoria will be stopping by Wordplay with a fabulous post on the 4 most common mistakes fiction editors see. You can swing by my blog on the appropriate days to find links and more information. Let your story find its own originality. The latest post in the video series on my blog draws examples from the 1992 film The Last of the Mohicans to show how thinking outside the box can bring new levels of depth and excitement to your writing. You can watch the video on my blog. New videos are posted every Wednesday. Meanwhile, enjoy this week's podcast. The good news? Writing never gets any easier. First-time novelists often make the mistake of believing their first novels will be the most difficult writing of their life. Once they've stamped finis on novel number 1, their writing worries will be over. They'll have a handle on this writing gig, and everything from here on out will get progressively easier. As of this week, I've written 8 novels. I typed the end on the Deepest Breaths first draft a few days ago, and I'm here to tell you that it's simply not true that writing gets easier with time and experience. In some ways, it actually becomes more difficult. When I wrote my first, eyes-only novel, the words flowed, the characters spoke, and the whole thing was on paper in a few victorious months. That first story was nothing but fun. Of course, it also stunk because I had zero idea what I was doing. What little I learned from that novel, I applied to the second, also eyes only, and what I learned from the second, I applied to the third. You guessed it, eyes only. With each novel, my awareness of the craft increased a little bit, and with each little bit that my awareness increased, so did the difficulty of getting the story right. By the time I reached novel number 4, which I can now look back at as a personal writing plateau, a place where I finally got it as a writer, writing was downright hard. It was about then that I came to the epiphany that writing was probably never going to get any easier. In On Finding Your Mentor, Writer's Digest, January 2011, Dinty W. Moore quotes his professor Vance Borgeli's wisdom on the subject. It doesn't ever get any easier. Each book presents a new narrative puzzle, and you start off with no idea how that puzzle can be solved. I began each book as uncertain of myself as I was when I first began. Every single book I've written has been its own adventure. After those first 4 novels, and the bout of trials and travails that accompanied mastering the foundation of the craft, I learned that every new book presents its own complicated set of difficulties. Perhaps I was able to master the lessons taught by one novel, but the next novel will offer a completely different set of demands. At first glance, this might all seem dreadfully depressing. You mean to tell me I'm going to go through this kind of mental distress and labor on every cotton-picking book? Yep. The struggles are never going to end? Nope. 20 years from now, I'm going to still be grubbing along, agonizing over word choice and story structure? Yep. And ain't it grand? In his wonderfully encouraging book Life, fantasy author Jeff Vandermeer explains that the glory is in the struggle. Because you are uncertain, despite having mastery, you know that your writing is still alive, that you are not simply doomed to repeat the same path you chose so many times before. Because you feel once again as if you are writing your first book, you know that writing is still meaningful to you. A writing life without any challenges would hardly be worth the effort, now would it? Recognizing, and even appreciating, the fact that writing will always be difficult frees us from the doubt, and even guilt, of feeling we'll never be good enough. Because the truth is, we won't. We'll never be perfect. but we can always be better. So here's to novel number 9, and a brand new round of lessons to be learned, mountains to be climbed, and story tactics to be mastered. Thank you for listening to the Wordplay Podcast. To read a transcript of this episode, visit me on the web at wordplay-kmwyland, that's weiland.blogspot.com, and be sure to listen again next week.